History, as you know, it is a story full of blank pages. A single discovery can overturn everything we thought was true about our earliest ancestors. This is the power of archaeology, a field dedicated to unearthing the real story of early civilization. We will explore 20 finds that did exactly that, completely reshaping our understanding of humanity's first chapters. You will see how a temple predating agriculture rewrites the origins of society, and why a sunken city forces us to redraw the map of the ancient world. By the end, you will see the entire timeline of human history in a new, more complex light. How much of our past do you think is still waiting to be found? A barren hilltop in southeastern Turkey held a secret for millennia, one that would shatter a fundamental assumption about human progress. In the 1990s, archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began excavating this site, known as Göbekli Tepe. What he uncovered were not simple tools or temporary shelters, but immense, T-shaped stone pillars arranged into great circles. These monoliths, some weighing over 10 tons, were intricately carved with foxes, cranes, and scorpions. The truly staggering fact, however, is their age. This complex was built around 9,600 BCE, a staggering 6,000 years before Stonehenge was even a concept. This was a time when humanity was supposedly composed of small, nomadic bands of hunter-gatherers. The established story was clear. First, humans learned to farm. Agriculture provided a stable food surplus, which then allowed for permanent settlements, specialized labor, and finally, the spare time and resources to build monuments and develop complex religion. Göbekli Tepe turns that sequence completely on its head. Here, the temple came first. The sophistication of the carvings reveals a shared symbolic world and a capacity for abstract thought that historians never attributed to pre-agricultural peoples. The sheer effort of quarrying, moving, and erecting these pillars required a level of social organization and communal effort that was thought to be impossible without farming. So how did they do it? What compelled these nomadic groups to come together for a project of such scale? The evidence suggests that it was a shared spiritual belief, a collective drive to create meaning that provided the initial spark for settled society. This was not a city in the traditional sense, but a ceremonial center that drew people from across the region. As Klaus Schmidt himself proposed, first came the temple, then the city. This single site forces us to reconsider the very engine of civilization, proving that the human need to build and believe may have been the original catalyst for the world we know today. This revelation about our capacity for organization without agriculture sets the stage for a discovery that reveals a surprising mastery of another fundamental skill. While Göbekli Tepe reveals the power of belief to bring people together, another civilization perfected the art of living together on a massive scale, but in a way that defies all our expectations of ancient power. In the river plains of what is now Pakistan and northwest India, the Indus Valley civilization built cities of breathtaking sophistication from around 3,300 BCE. Their great urban centers, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, were marvels of planning with streets laid out in precise grids, the world's first known urban sanitation systems, and houses made from uniformly sized bricks. Yet for all their achievements, archaeologists made a puzzling discovery, or rather, a lack of one. There were no colossal palaces towering over the populace, no grand royal tombs filled with treasure, and no giant statues celebrating the glory of kings or conquerors. In an age when Egypt was raising pyramids for pharaohs and Mesopotamia was erecting ziggurats for god-kings, the Indus Valley presents a profound mystery. How did a society encompassing over 1 million square kilometers function for nearly 2,000 years without the clear symbols of centralized, autocratic rule that we see everywhere else? The evidence points to a different kind of social contract. Instead of a single ruler, power may have been shared among groups of merchants or community leaders. A remarkable uniformity is seen in their standardized weights and measures, which would have been essential for trade across the vast region, suggesting a network of economic cooperation rather than top-down control. The center of civic life in Mohenjo-Daro was not a palace or a fortress, but the Great Bath, a large, watertight public pool that likely served a ritual purpose, emphasizing community and purity. Even their writing, a script found on thousands of small seals, remains undeciphered, guarding the secrets of how they governed themselves. This was, as one expert described it, an urban culture without a state. It forces us to ask, was their longevity and stability a result of a more collective, perhaps even more egalitarian, approach to social organization? The silent, ruler-less cities of the Indus Valley stand as a powerful testament to an alternative path to civilization, one that challenges our deep-seated assumption that complex society requires a king. This idea of a society flourishing without a single, powerful leader makes the next discovery, one centered on a single, legendary figure, all the more compelling. The silent, ruler-less cities of the Indus Valley leave us with a profound mystery of a civilization that spoke through its structures, not its scripts. But what happens when a civilization speaks and we simply cannot understand its words? For centuries, the grand monuments of Egypt stood as magnificent but mute sentinels. Their surfaces were covered in intricate hieroglyphs, a beautiful and baffling script that had fallen silent for over 1,000 years. The meaning of this ancient writing was utterly lost, locking away the voices of pharaohs and priests. The breakthrough came not from a tomb but from a fort. In 1799, a French soldier involved in Napoleon's campaign in Egypt unearthed a dark, granodiorite slab amidst the rubble of a fortification. This was the Rosetta Stone. Its surface was inscribed with 3 separate versions of the same text: ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, the more common Demotic script, and ancient Greek. Scholars immediately recognized its potential. The known Greek text could be the key to deciphering the unknown Egyptian scripts. The painstaking work of translation became an intellectual race, culminating in the triumph of the French scholar Jean-François Champollion in 1822. By meticulously comparing the names of rulers like Ptolemy and Cleopatra across the scripts, he finally cracked the code. The effect was revolutionary. It was as if a library of 3,000 years had suddenly had its doors thrown open. The hieroglyphs were no longer mere decoration, they were a complex system of sound and meaning. We could finally read the words of the Egyptians themselves, from royal decrees carved on temple walls to personal letters written on papyrus. We learned of their deep religious beliefs, their administrative challenges, and their daily triumphs directly from the source. The stone gave Egypt back its voice, transforming it from a land of silent mystery into a civilization with a documented, rich narrative. This monumental achievement proved that to truly know a culture, we must be able to hear its own story in its own words. The ability to listen to the pharaohs along the Nile was a gift of language, a key that unlocked one great civilization, just as another discovery would give us the foundational text for an entire legal tradition. Standing over 7 feet tall, this pillar of polished black stone was meant to be seen and remembered. Unearthed in the ancient city of Susa at the dawn of the 20th century, the Code of Hammurabi presents one of humanity's most pivotal ideas, that a society should be governed not by the whims of a ruler, but by a published, consistent set of laws. Created by the Babylonian king Hammurabi around 1754 BCE, its 282 statutes cover the minutiae of daily life, from the price of hiring a boat to the responsibilities of a builder whose house collapses. While the phrase "an eye for an eye" is its most famous legacy, this was far more than a mandate for retribution. It was a comprehensive attempt to bring order to a complex urban world. Its preamble makes its grand ambition clear. It was erected to cause justice to prevail in the land, to destroy the wicked and the evil, so that the strong might not oppress the weak. For the first time in any extensive recorded form, we see the concept of proportional justice, where the punishment was intended to match the social status of the victim and the severity of the offense. This was a revolutionary step away from arbitrary power and feuds, creating a framework where citizens, in theory, knew what to expect from their government and from each other. It acknowledged that a sprawling civilization of merchants, farmers, and artisans could not function on custom alone. It required transparent, written rules to manage commerce, property, and family affairs. The code reveals a society consciously building itself, striving for structure and predictability as the very bedrock of civic life. This Babylonian vision of legal order established a cornerstone of civilization that would echo for millennia, yet it emerged from a world of clay tablets and stone pillars, a stark contrast to the next discovery, which would reveal a technological sophistication so advanced it feels almost out of place in the ancient world. Buried for over 2 millennia, an entire army stood in silent formation, waiting for a command that would never come. In 1974, farmers digging a well in China's Shaanxi province struck not water, but the terracotta head of a soldier, his stoic expression frozen in clay. This chance discovery unlocked one of the most astonishing archaeological finds in history, the underground legion of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. The scale was almost beyond comprehension, a vast subterranean complex housing over 8,000 life-sized soldiers, each one bearing unique facial features, hairstyles, and armor. They were not a monolithic, anonymous force, but a military roster of individuals, a permanent garrison for the afterlife. This was not merely a tomb, it was a statement of absolute power cast in clay and bronze. The emperor, who had forcibly unified China's warring states into a single empire, believed his rule should extend beyond death. The army, complete with real chariots, detailed horses, and thousands of functional bronze weapons, was a functional military formation for the spiritual realm. It demonstrated a level of centralized authority and resource mobilization that was unprecedented, a project that required the coordinated labor of hundreds of thousands of artisans and workers for nearly 4 decades. As historian John Mann observed, this was ego cast in clay. The emperor's quest for immortality was so consuming that he built a mirror image of his earthly power to take with him, a testament to one man's belief that he could conquer mortality itself through sheer force of will and imperial decree. The sheer individuality of each soldier shattered previous assumptions about the artistic and technological capabilities of the era, revealing a society capable of mass production without sacrificing astonishing personal detail. This monumental effort for a single ruler's eternal comfort makes the discovery of entire cities constructed for the departed all the more profound. The discovery of a pharaoh's tomb untouched by looters seemed an impossible dream until Howard Carter held a flickering candle into a crack in the Valley of the Kings. His breathless report of seeing wonderful things was an understatement. behind that sealed doorway lay the complete world of a king, preserved for over 3,000 years. This was the burial of Tutankhamun, a young ruler whose name was almost lost to history, yet his final resting place would become the most famous archaeological find of all time. Unlike the grand, emptied tombs of greater pharaohs, this compact, four-room suite was packed floor to ceiling with more than 5,000 objects. Every item, from the iconic solid gold mask that covered the king's mummified remains to his golden thrones and even his personal linen undergarments, was still in place. This was not merely a collection of treasure, it was a time capsule of pharaonic life and belief, sealed in a single moment. The organization of the chambers was a deliberate map of the journey to the afterlife. The antechamber held his chariots and beds for his use. The treasury safeguarded the canopic shrine containing his organs, and the burial chamber itself housed the nested coffins, one within another like a golden puzzle box. For the first time, researchers could see the full, breathtaking scope of a royal burial ritual exactly as the ancient priests had intended it. The quality of the craftsmanship, from the inlaid jewelry to the alabaster vessels, set a new standard for understanding Egyptian art. It revealed that even a minor king who died young was sent into the afterlife with unimaginable wealth and meticulous care, making us wonder what truly magnificent assemblages were once prepared for the long-reigning giants of Egyptian history. The staggering opulence reserved for a single individual naturally leads us to ask, what was life like for the millions of ordinary people who built these civilizations? The crack of that broken pottery echoed through history. In 1946, a group of Bedouin shepherds searching for a lost goat near the stark cliffs overlooking the Dead Sea tossed a stone into a remote cave. The sound it made was not the thud of rock against earth, but the sharp shatter of ceramic. Venturing inside, they found clay jars containing ancient leather and papyrus scrolls, a discovery that would soon be recognized as the greatest manuscript treasure ever found, the Dead Sea Scrolls. This initial chance find led to a massive search of hundreds of nearby caves, eventually uncovering nearly 1,000 texts dating from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE. This was not a random collection, but an entire library deliberately hidden away from the turmoil of the era, likely by a devout Jewish sect known as the Essenes. The contents of these scrolls were revolutionary. They included the oldest known copies of the Hebrew Bible by a staggering 1,000 years. Before this, the oldest complete manuscript scholars had were from the Middle Ages. Suddenly, they could look back a full millennium to see the biblical texts in their most ancient form. This was like having a direct, unedited line to the original words, allowing researchers to trace the textual evolution of the Bible with a clarity never before imagined. But the library held more than just biblical books. It contained sectarian manuscripts, detailed community rules, poetic hymns, and startling apocalyptic texts. These writings painted a vivid picture of a period of intense religious diversity and fervent debate. They revealed that Judaism at the time was not a single, monolithic tradition, but a vibrant tapestry of competing interpretations and ideas, a world alive with spiritual searching. This hidden cache, preserved by the dry desert air, fundamentally reshaped our understanding of the Second Temple period, providing an indispensable backdrop for the emergence of early Christianity. It proves that sometimes the most profound histories are not written in stone for all to see, but are carefully concealed, waiting in silence for the right moment to speak again. This idea of a civilization preserving its most vital knowledge against the threat of loss finds a powerful parallel in a city frozen in time. From the depths of a Roman shipwreck, a lump of corroded bronze and wood seemed like just another artifact. Discovered by sponge divers off the coast of Antiquity in 1901, It was set aside for decades, a museum curiosity too encrusted to understand. Then, researchers began to peer inside using advanced imaging techniques, and the true nature of the object emerged. It was not a statue or a simple tool. It was a machine, now known as the Antiquity mechanism. This intricate device from the 2nd century BCE is considered the world's first known analog computer. Its interior was a complex clockwork of over 30 precisely cut bronze gears, arranged in a system that could calculate the movements of the heavens. By turning a hand crank on the side, an ancient user could predict the positions of the sun and moon, forecast upcoming eclipses, and even track the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. The device is just extraordinary, the only thing of its kind, one researcher noted, a statement that barely captures its revolutionary impact. This single artifact completely shatters the long-held perception of ancient Greek technology. We knew of their philosophical genius and architectural marvels, but this mechanism reveals a mechanical sophistication that historians believed was impossible for the era. It demonstrates a practical, gear-driven application of astronomical knowledge that would not be seen again until the mechanical clocks of the 14th century in Europe, a gap of over 1,000 years. The mechanism forces a complete reassessment of the Hellenistic world, suggesting a previously unknown tradition of complex engineering and gearwork that was simply lost. It stands as a stark and humbling reminder that the timeline of human innovation is not a straight, upward curve. Entire schools of knowledge, complete technological lineages can vanish, leaving behind only cryptic fragments. This glimpse of advanced ancient technology makes us question what other sophisticated devices, what other marvels of human ingenuity have been completely erased by the passage of time. The silence of the Supe Valley in Peru concealed a secret older than the empires of the Maya or the Inca. For decades, what appeared to be massive, natural hills dotted the landscape. Then, in the 1990s, archaeologists began to excavate, and these hills revealed themselves to be something extraordinary, the lost city of Caral. This was not a simple village. It was a full-fledged urban center, a complex of 6 large pyramidal structures, sunken circular plazas, and distinct residential districts, all laid out with clear intention. Its true power, however, lies in its age. Caral was a thriving metropolis between 2600 and 2000 BCE, a time that places it as a contemporary of the great pyramid builders of Egypt. This single fact shattered the established timeline for the Americas, proving that urban civilization arose in the New World over 1,000 years earlier than anyone had believed. The society that built Caral achieved this monumental architecture without a technology that was considered fundamental everywhere else. They were pre-ceramic, crafting their world without the use of pottery. Their accomplishments reveal a different path to complexity. They cultivated cotton in the inland valleys and traded it with coastal communities for vast quantities of anchovies and sardines, creating a sophisticated economic network that fueled their growth. The very design of the city suggests a society oriented around shared belief and communal gathering, with a central amphitheater that could have hosted rituals for hundreds. Perhaps most strikingly, archaeologists found no evidence of defensive walls, no storehouses for weapons, and no depictions of warfare. For centuries, Caral seems to have flourished in peace, its authority likely vested in religious leaders or trade masters who coordinated labor and distribution. This peaceful, precocious city forces a radical rethinking of civilization itself. It demonstrates that the New World was not a late copy of the Old, but a parallel cradle where humanity, in complete isolation, independently invented urban life. The serene legacy of Carroll presents a powerful question. Was widespread conflict an inevitable part of societal growth, or was it merely one possible path? The next discovery offers a sobering answer from a very different corner of the ancient world. The peat cutters of Tollund, Denmark, expected to find fuel, not a face from the past. Yet there he was, a man lying in the bog, his features so perfectly preserved that the stubble on his chin and the leather cap on his head looked as though they were from yesterday. But the carefully tied noose around his neck told a different, much older story. He was one of the bog bodies, hundreds of individuals recovered from peat bogs across northern Europe, dating back over 2,000 years to the Iron Age. These are not simple burials. The state of preservation is so remarkable that scientists can analyze the contents of their final meals, often a simple gruel, and study the intricate details of their hairstyles and clothing. But this intimate snapshot comes with a chilling dimension. Many of these individuals, like the Lindo man found in England, met violent ends, showing evidence of blows to the head, throat cutting, or strangulation. Researchers suggest these were not acts of common crime, but deliberate ritual practices. The evidence points to these acts being deeply embedded in the spiritual beliefs of Celtic and Germanic tribes, perhaps as solemn offerings to deities to ensure fertility for the land or to maintain a balance in the cosmic order. The bodies themselves, often placed with care in the bog after their passing, become a profound, if difficult, testimony. They force us to acknowledge that the spiritual world of early societies could encompass practices that, from our modern viewpoint, seem severe. This is a sobering look at how the human desire to connect with the divine could manifest in ways that challenge our assumptions, revealing a complex relationship between faith, community, and the natural world. This glimpse into a spiritual system centered on powerful, elemental forces finds a fascinating parallel in a much different ancient culture, one celebrated for its grace and beauty. The vibrant frescoes of Knossos seem to capture a world turned upside down. Here, in Europe's first advanced civilization, women are depicted in positions of clear authority, leading sacred processions and confronting powerful bulls in a ritual known as bull leaping. When Sir Arthur Evans began excavating the sprawling, labyrinthine palace in 1900, he uncovered more than just ruins. He revealed a society that defied all contemporary expectations of the ancient world. The Minoans, as he named them, built a complex, multi-story palace with advanced drainage systems and vivid art, yet their capital showed no signs of defensive walls. Evans interpreted this as evidence of a Pax Minoica, a prolonged era of Minoan peace, governed not by warrior kings but perhaps by a powerful priestess queen. The very throne room he discovered, with its graceful, sculpted seat set between frescoes of griffins, seemed designed for a female ruler. This vision of a possible matriarchal or matrifocal society, where goddess figures dominated the religious landscape and the culture celebrated art and athletics over warfare, was a radical challenge to the standard narrative. It suggested that patriarchy and constant conflict were not the only blueprints for a successful Bronze Age civilization. The palace itself, with its countless corridors and interconnected rooms, was so vast and intricate that it surely inspired the later Greek myth of the Minotaur's labyrinth. This was not merely a royal residence, but the administrative heart of a vast maritime trade network, a bureaucracy that used an undeciphered script to manage goods flowing across the Mediterranean. While modern archaeologists now question the completeness of Evans's peaceful, matriarchal vision, pointing to evidence of later conflict and a more complex power structure, the initial discovery's impact was profound. It permanently broadened our imagination for what an early civilization could be, proving that societies could prioritize vibrant artistic expression and perhaps even female central roles long before the rise of classical Greece. The legacy of Knossos is a powerful reminder that our interpretations of the past are always evolving, shaped as much by the questions we ask as by the artifacts we find. This appreciation for a civilization's artistic soul leads us to another discovery, where art served not just culture but survival itself, etched onto the very landscape. The desert floor of southern Peru holds a canvas so vast it can only be comprehended from the heavens. Etched into the arid plains are the Nazca lines, a breathtaking collection of geoglyphs created by the Nazca culture between 500 BCE and 500 CE. From high above, the landscape transforms into a gallery of immense figures: a sprawling monkey with a coiled tail, a colossal hummingbird, a spider, and a whale, all drawn with single, continuous lines that stretch for miles alongside precise geometric shapes. For decades, their purpose was one of archaeology's greatest puzzles, inspiring theories that ranged from alien landing strips to a giant astronomical calendar. The modern explanation, however, is both more human and more profound. Archaeologists have found ceremonial pottery and other ritual offerings at the endpoints of certain lines, suggesting these were sacred pathways. They were not meant for human spectators on the ground, but for spiritual processions where walking the lines was an act of devotion, a prayer made physical across the desert. The figures themselves were likely intended to be seen by the deities in the sky, a permanent and monumental invocation for water and fertility in an unforgiving environment. The engineering feat is staggering. How did a people without flight achieve such perfect proportions and straight lines over distances exceeding 1,200 feet? They used simple tools and meticulous surveying, transferring small-scale models to a grand, landscape-altering scale with an intuitive mastery of geometry. This was not the work of a few, but a generations-long communal project that required a shared vision and coordinated labor on an almost unimaginable scale. The Nazca lines challenge our very definition of a monument. They are not a structure you can enter, but an inscription you are part of, a testament to a society that invested its entire identity into a dialogue with the earth and the sky, creating a legacy that remains visible only from a perspective they themselves could never physically attain. This profound act of faith written into the land finds a haunting parallel in another civilization that also shaped its world for an audience beyond the living. A single document can ignite a firestorm that burns for decades. In 1965, a small, unassuming piece of parchment was presented to the world, and it seemed to hold a secret that would rewrite the history of exploration. This was the Vinland map. Its drawing showed Europe, Africa, and Asia, but it also depicted a vast landmass across the Atlantic, west of Greenland, labeled in Latin as Vinland. According to its proposed date of the 1440s, this map would be the first known cartographic record of the Americas, created 50 years before Christopher Columbus ever set sail. It appeared to be stunning physical proof of the Norse sagas, which told of Leif Erikson establishing a settlement in a place he called Vinland around the year 1000. The implications were staggering, suggesting that knowledge of the New World was circulating in Europe long before the famous voyage of 1492. But the map's story was just beginning, and it would soon become one of history's most captivating whodunits. The initial excitement quickly gave way to intense suspicion. How could such a pivotal document have surfaced with such a vague provenance, seemingly from nowhere? Scientists subjected the map's ink and parchment to every test modern technology could offer. Some early analyzers suggested the parchment was indeed medieval, but the ink told a more complicated story. Researchers discovered traces of a modern 20th-century pigment called anatase within the ink, a compound not used in the medieval period. This single finding pointed strongly toward a forgery, an elaborate hoax designed to capitalize on the historical narrative, yet the debate refused to die. Other studies emerged, arguing that the anatase could have formed from natural medieval processes or was simply a contaminant. Each new round of testing seemed to produce conflicting results, leaving the map's authenticity perpetually in doubt. This ongoing scientific duel is a powerful lesson in itself, demonstrating the forensic rigor required in modern archaeology. It shows that proving a historical claim is a battle fought in laboratories as much as in libraries, where a single chemical signature can overturn a beautiful story. The passionate debate over the Vinland map reveals our deep desire to hold a tangible piece of the past, to have a single artifact that definitively confirms what the old texts only hint at. Whether it is an ingenious fake or a misunderstood relic, its legacy is secure. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable gaps in our knowledge and keeps alive the tantalizing possibility of other, lost voyages across the sea. This enduring mystery of who might have crossed the vast ocean prepares us for a discovery that confirms one of history's most legendary journeys beyond the horizon. Beneath the calm waters off the Turkish coast, a single ship's story lay scattered for over 3,000 years. In 1982, a sponge diver's routine descent revealed a sight that would rewrite our understanding of the Bronze Age world. He had found the Uluburan shipwreck, a merchant vessel from the late 14th century BCE, whose cargo was so vast and varied it seemed impossible. This was not just a sunken ship, it was a floating time capsule of an entire era. As archaeologists meticulously recovered its contents, they began to piece together an astonishing inventory. There were 10 tons of raw copper ingots from Cyprus, shaped like stretched ox hides, alongside a ton of precious tin. Mixed together, this single shipment could have forged 300 bronze suits of armor. But the cargo did not stop there. The hold contained ebony logs from Africa, terebinth resin in large jars, Canaanite glass, gold from Egypt, and even amber beads that originated in the distant Baltic. Here was the entire Mediterranean economy in one wooden hull, a physical snapshot of a world connected by commerce long before the term globalization existed. The ship itself was a microcosm of this interconnected age. The personal belongings of the crew suggested they were a mixed group, likely Canaanite and Mycenaean, working side by side. They carried weapons, tools, and seals from their homelands, and even a small, folding wooden writing tablet, the kind a merchant would use to keep his accounts. This was not a haphazard voyage, but a professional, well-organized trading mission linking the great powers of the time, from the Hittites in Anatolia to the pharaohs in Egypt. The Uluburan wreck provided the hard, physical evidence that supported the letters found in the archives of Amarna and Ugarit, which spoke of royal gifts and elaborate trade agreements. It proved that the stability and wealth of the late Bronze Age rested on a fragile, far-flung web of resource exchange. The copper from Cyprus, the tin from possibly as far as Afghanistan, and the luxury goods from every corner were the lifeblood of empires. This single shipwreck transformed the Bronze Age from a chapter about isolated kingdoms into a story of profound interdependence. Its tragic loss on the seabed foreshadowed the vulnerability of this entire system, a network so complex that when it suddenly collapsed around 1200 BCE, it plunged the entire region into a dark age. The Uluburan cargo makes us wonder how many other ships, laden with the wealth of nations, simply vanished, taking their crucial economic links to the bottom of the sea. The burning of Nineveh's great palace in 612 BCE was meant to be its final end. The fire that consumed the capital of the Assyrian Empire should have erased its memory, turning a symbol of absolute power into dust and legend. Yet, in the heat of that inferno, something remarkable happened. The very agent of destruction became an instrument of preservation. The thousands of clay tablets in the royal library were not reduced to ash, but fire-hardened, baked into durable ceramic that would survive for millennia. When archaeologists Austin Henry Layard and Hormuzd Rassam began excavating the mound of Khanjik in the mid-19th century, they uncovered these tablets by the thousands, a vast subterranean archive that had been waiting in the dark. This was the library of Ashurbanipal, and it was far more than a royal collection. It was the first systematically assembled library the world has ever known. King Ashurbanipal was a unique ruler, a conqueror who was also a scholar. He was literate in a time when most kings were not, and he was driven by an insatiable hunger not just for territory but for knowledge. He sent scribes across his vast empire, from Babylon to distant provinces, with a singular mission: to seek out every important text they could find and copy them all for his library in Nineveh. The result was a collection of over 30,000 clay tablets, meticulously organized by subject. You could find the entire epic of Gilgamesh there, the timeless story of a king's quest for immortality. There were creation myths, scientific texts detailing medical diagnoses and astronomical observations, detailed legal codes, and endless administrative records. There were even collections of omens, instructions for interpreting the will of the gods through events in the natural world. This library provided the foundational texts for understanding all of Mesopotamian civilization. Before its discovery, the Assyrians were known almost exclusively from the boastful carvings on their palace walls, depictions of ruthless military campaigns that painted them as brutal conquerors. The library revealed another dimension entirely. It showed us a society that valued literature, science, and law. It proved that the Assyrians were not merely destroyers, they were curators, actively working to gather and safeguard the collective wisdom of their world. The survival of this knowledge marks a pivotal moment in our intellectual history. It represents humanity's first great attempt to create a universal repository, a central vault where the entire spectrum of human thought, from epic poetry to tax records, could be kept safe for the future. In a very real way, Ashurbanipal's library was the ancient world's internet, a single access point to the accumulated knowledge of a civilization. This ambitious project to centralize all information makes the next discovery all the more fascinating, for it reveals a society that chose a very different and far more permanent method for keeping its records. A child's exclamation of wonder echoed through a Spanish cave in 1879, revealing a gallery of masterpieces that had been hidden for 14,000 years. The girl's father, amateur archaeologist Marcelino Sanz de Sochuola, had been digging near the entrance, but it was her upward gaze that found the true treasure. The cave ceiling was alive with a herd of stampeding bison, painted in vibrant reds and blacks, their forms so dynamic and realistic they seemed to breathe in the flickering torchlight. The artists had used the cave's natural bulges and contours to give the animals a startling three-dimensional volume, a technique of such sophistication that it defied everything experts believed about our Paleolithic ancestors. When Sochuola announced his discovery, the leading scholars of the day met it with scorn and outright dismissal. They declared the paintings an obvious modern hoax, insisting that prehistoric humans were simple brutes, incapable of such refined artistic expression. The scientific establishment's rejection was so complete that Sochuola died a disgraced man, never knowing that his daughter's find would one day be fully vindicated. As more ancient caves like Lascaux in France were uncovered in the 20th century, the truth became undeniable. The art was authentic and it was ancient. This was not mere doodling, it was a profound spiritual and aesthetic achievement. the purpose behind these subterranean galleries continues to spark debate. Were they sacred spaces for ritual where shamans communed with the spirit of the hunt? Were they a form of visual storytelling, passing knowledge from one generation to the next? Or were they an early attempt at sympathetic magic, where painting a successful hunt on the wall was believed to help manifest one in reality? Whatever their specific intent, the power of these images is absolute. They prove that the human drive to create, to find beauty in the world and represent it, is a fundamental part of our identity. Long before the first seeds were planted or the first cities built, our ancestors were compelled to make their mark, to leave behind a testament to their perception and their wonder. This breathtaking artistry from our deepest past forces a humbling question. If such complex thought and skill existed so long ago, what other capacities, what other forms of genius were present in the human mind that we have yet to uncover? The volcanic ash fell softly, a gentle rain of gray dust that would one day become a time machine. In 1976, Mary Leakey's team working in Litoli, Tanzania, brushed away the earth to reveal not bones or tools but a pathway. Preserved in that hardened ash was a trail of footprints left by hominin individuals an astounding 3.6 million years ago. These were not the vague impressions of an unknown creature. The prints showed a clear, modern heel strike, a push off from the toes, and a distinct arch. This was the walk of an Australopithecus afarensis, the same family as the famous Lucy, captured in a single moment of passage. Two individuals, one perhaps larger and one smaller, walked side by side, their steps close enough to suggest a social bond, a family unit moving together across a landscape still warm from the eruption. This simple trail settled one of the most profound debates in human origins. Which came first, the large brain or the upright posture? Litoli provided the definitive answer. Bipedalism came first by millions of years. Walking on 2 feet freed the hands, allowing our ancestors to carry food, to gesture, to eventually shape the world around them with tools. This new posture changed everything, altering the pelvis, reshaping the spine, and setting the stage for the eventual explosion in cognitive ability. To look at those footprints is to feel a connection that transcends time. You are not looking at a fossilized bone, but at a step, a stride, a journey taken under an ancient sky. It is the most intimate snapshot imaginable of our deepest past, a testament that the path to humanity began not with a thought, but with a single, deliberate step forward. This evidence of our ancestors' first stable steps paved the way for the next great leap, one they would make not with their feet, but with their hands. The volcanic ash at Litoli preserved a single moment of movement, but the deep, sun-baked canyons of Olduvai Gorge hold a record of persistence spanning 2 million years. This great scar in the earth, part of Tanzania's Great Rift Valley, became the stage for one of archaeology's most ambitious and prolonged detective stories, initiated by Louis and Mary Leakey starting in the 1930s. They were not searching for a single artifact, but for the very origins of humanity itself, and the ground yielded clues in the form of stone and bone. The most fundamental of these clues were the Oldowan tools, simple-looking rocks with edges deliberately flaked away to create a sharp chopper or a cutting flake. What makes them revolutionary is not their complexity, but their intention. Dated to an astonishing 2.6 million years ago, these are the earliest known evidence of systematic tool-making. This was not just picking up a sharp stone, it was the cognitive leap to understand that by striking one rock with another, you could create a predictable, useful edge. This simple act of creation separated our ancestors from all other creatures. It was the first technology, the original interface between a thinking mind and a resistant world, used to butcher meat, crack open bones for marrow and perhaps even shape wood. The question then became whose hands held these tools. The Leakeys' answer came with the discovery of a fossil skull they nicknamed Zinjanthropus, or Nutcracker Man, for its powerful jaws. But the true breakthrough was finding another hominin type in the same ancient layers, a species with a slightly larger brain cavity and bones that suggested a more agile build. They named this species Homo habilis, or handyman, directly linking a specific ancestor to the tool kits found beside them. This was a monumental connection. It suggested that technological innovation was a driving force in our evolution. The story that emerged from Olduvai Gorge was not a neat, linear march from primitive to advanced. Instead, the evidence painted a picture of a diverse, branching family tree. For a significant period, multiple hominin species like the robust Zinjanthropus and the more gracile Homo habilis shared this landscape, likely competing for resources and adapting to a changing environment in different ways. This discovery shattered the old idea of a single missing link, replacing it with the vibrant, bush-like reality of human evolution. The patient work at Olduvai established East Africa as the undeniable cradle of humankind, providing the chronological and fossil framework that every subsequent discovery would build upon. It forces us to see that first, simple stone chopper not as a crude object, but as the spark of an unbroken chain of innovation that would eventually lead to the cities and technologies of our modern world. The seafloor of Aboukir Bay held a secret for more than a millennium, a legendary port city swallowed by the Mediterranean. For centuries, Thonis Heracleon was known only from fragmented Greek texts, a place of myth that governed trade before the rise of Alexandria. Then, in the year 2000, underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudiot and his team began to bring the legend back into the light. Their excavations revealed a landscape frozen in time, a sprawling city lying in silence on the seabed. The first sights to emerge from the murky waters were staggering, colossal statues of pharaohs and queens standing over 16 feet tall, their stone faces gazing upward as if waiting for this moment. They were surrounded by the remains of grand temples, sunken ships still laden with cargo, gold coins, and inscribed stone slabs known as stelae. These stelae bore decrees in both Egyptian hieroglyphs and ancient Greek, a physical testament to the city's critical role as the mandatory gateway for all trade flowing from the Greek world into Egypt. This was not an outpost, but a vibrant religious and commercial hub where cultures met and merged. Greek merchants lived and worshipped alongside their Egyptian counterparts in this bustling, cosmopolitan port, their economic lives intertwined in a network of exchange that fueled the ancient Mediterranean. The sheer scale of the statues and the foundations of the temples speak to immense wealth and importance, a city at the peak of its power. Its likely demise adds a layer of profound drama. Researchers suggest the city succumbed to soil liquefaction, a sudden and catastrophic collapse of the ground following a major earthquake. The very earth it was built on simply gave way, dragging a center of civilization beneath the waves. The rediscovery of Thonis Heracleon does more than just confirm a legend. It turns myth into tangible history. It reveals a major center of the ancient world that was completely erased, a powerful reminder that our maps of the past are still incomplete and that countless stories are preserved not in sand, but in the silent depths of the sea. This revelation of a civilization lost to water finds a powerful echo in another, one that was consumed by the relentless jungle. The rediscovery of a civilization lost to water finds a powerful echo in another consumed by the relentless jungle. For centuries, the magnificent spires of Angkor Wat were all that remained visible, a breathtaking temple complex emerging from the Cambodian forest. When French explorer Henry Mauhat brought it to Western attention in the 19th century, he described a rival to Solomon, a place grand enough to have been built by an ancient king. But that initial wonder was only a glimpse of the truth. The real discovery of Angkor has happened in the last 2 decades, not with shovels and brushes, but with lasers. Using a technology called LIDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, archaeologists have been able to see through the dense canopy to map the ground below. What they revealed was not merely a ceremonial center, but the pulsing heart of a vast, low-density urban sprawl. This was not a city in the traditional, walled sense, but a sprawling hydraulic metropolis, an empire built on the mastery of water. The Khmer Empire, which flourished from the 9th to the 15th centuries, engineered an almost unimaginable network of canals, massive reservoirs known as barrays, and intricate moats. This system was the empire's lifeblood, a complex machine designed to capture, store, and distribute the region's torrential monsoon rains and the seasonal flow of the Siem Reap River. The scale is staggering. The West Barray Reservoir alone is 5 miles long and over a mile wide, an artificial body of water holding millions of gallons. This was not just for show. The canals channeled water to immense rice fields, allowing for 2 or even 3 harvests per year, a level of agricultural productivity that would be impressive even today. This surplus fed a population that may have reached 1 million people, making Angkor one of the most extensive pre-industrial complexes on Earth. The water system was also a spiritual highway, with the moats around Angkor Wat representing the cosmic ocean and the temples symbolizing sacred mountains. The entire landscape was a physical map of the Khmer Hindu-Buddhist cosmology, where engineering and belief were completely intertwined. Yet this very mastery of the environment may have sown the seeds of its eventual hardship. The system was so vast and complex that it demanded constant maintenance. Research suggests that over centuries, the network may have become vulnerable to shifts in the climate, perhaps periods of prolonged drought followed by intense monsoon flooding that the canals could no longer handle. The sediment clogging the channels and the strain on the infrastructure could have challenged the empire's stability. The story of Angkor is a profound lesson in sustainability. It shows a civilization reaching a zenith by bending its environment to a grand, unified vision, creating a metropolis of water and stone that supported 1 million lives. Its legacy reminds us that the success of any society is deeply linked to its relationship with the resources that sustain it, a delicate balance between ambition and the enduring power of the natural world. Taken together, these 20 discoveries form a powerful chorus of ancient voices. They tell us that the story of our past is not a single, straight line carved in stone, but a living, breathing narrative, constantly rewritten by the next turn of the archaeologist's trowel. Each find, from the temple that predated farming to the city that mastered water, shattered a comfortable assumption we held about how civilization had to unfold. We learned that complex society does not require a king, that advanced technology can be lost for 1,000 years, and that entire cities of staggering scale can simply vanish from human memory. This collective evidence teaches a profound lesson in humility. The past is not a simpler version of our present. It is a tapestry of immense creativity, startling diversity, and deep interconnection that we are only just beginning to appreciate. The very methods of discovery have transformed. Today's archaeologists are as likely to wield a laser scanner or a DNA sequencer as they are a brush, weaving together clues from chemistry, geology, and satellite imagery to see the whole picture. These ancient whispers are more than just history. They are a conversation across time, offering us tangible lessons about societal resilience, the delicate balance with our environment, and the many ways humans have found to live together. They remind us that our own civilization is a recent chapter in a very long experiment. By listening to these echoes from our shared beginnings, we gain not just knowledge of where we came from, but a deeper, more thoughtful perspective on the path that lies ahead. From the stone circles of Göbekli Tepe to the hydraulic city of Ankara, these 20 archaeological discoveries have irrevocably altered the map of human history. They prove that our ancestors were not primitive precursors but innovative, complex societies in their own right, each with a unique story to tell. We have seen that civilization emerged in multiple cradles across the globe, from the sunken ports of Egypt to the mountaintop sanctuaries of Peru, following paths of astonishing diversity. These societies possessed a technological and spiritual sophistication that we are only just beginning to comprehend, challenging the very definition of progress itself. This journey through time underscores a vital truth that history is not a closed book but an ongoing excavation. Every shard of pottery, every inscribed stone, and every footprint preserved in volcanic ash holds the potential to rewrite a chapter of our collective story. As we continue to unearth the past with new tools and fresh perspectives, we do more than just satisfy our curiosity. We forge a deeper connection with the long chain of human experience, understanding the resilience, the creativity, and the shared challenges that bind us across millennia. Let these discoveries inspire you to look at the world with a questioning eye, to appreciate the profound legacy that lies just beneath our feet, and to remember that the greatest mysteries are often those waiting for their moment to be found. If this journey through time has captivated you, subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest enigmas, and share your thoughts on which discovery amazed you the most in the comments below.